Peter King in Football Morning in America said, is Trey ready to take it on his shoulder? Or Peter King didn't say this. Kyle Shanahan said this to him. Is Trey ready to take it all on his shoulders? He shouldn't be. He hasn't gone through it enough. I believe in a man as a person. I believe in his talent. I don't think he is going to make or break our season, just like in 2019 and last year. I didn't think Jimmy was going to make or break our season. But what sucks is when you're learning how to play, you're not there yet. How do you not get worse sometimes when the pressure is on you and you need to go through the growing pains? The first 2 times I read this quote, I didn't realize that is not even a backhanded compliment to Jimmy. That is just an assessment of Jimmy. But I think if we were really going through all the, I agree with him.
You're saying the last comment is more talking about 2019, like there were some growing pains, and then
no, I'm talking about the middle comment where he says, I don't think he's going to make or break the season, just like 2019 and last year. I don't think Jimmy was going to make or break the season, which we all agree. We agree with that. But
it's weird that
he's basically saying
Kyle just agrees. Yeah,
I
also agree he's like the 18th best quarterback in the league, guys.
He's basically saying he's replacement level.
Yeah, do you guys want to put a number on it? 18th? I've seen a lot of you put him right around that range. Me too. We got about 18, 19,
I told
20
Sando range. 21, but Sando had some people that said 17.
I would have gone fringe tier 4, tier 3, but hey, I saw a couple people say tier 2. I was laughing in my desk like, what, these idiots. But you're right. It's rare that like, and I would imagine in the he was just very comfortable with Peter. But you're right. I mean, it's a dig. But it's not a dig. It's reality.
It's a reality.
Just, you don't see coaches talk like that very often.
Again, I'll read the first part.
He's basically just saying Jimmy's a game manager.
I think part of what he's saying is this year it's a totally different quarterback with a totally different skill set. But in many ways, it's the same thing we've done before, where our quarterback has some things he does well and has some other things he doesn't do well. And the good thing is our team is really good. Our whole team, the collective is good. And with Trey, you're going to get some things that Jimmy didn't do. Maybe there'll be some things that Jimmy did well that Trey is still figuring out how to do. He won't be limited by physical limitations at all. It's just going to be about learning how to be an NFL quarterback. And he says it here too. Like he can't, until he's done it, is he ready to take it on his shoulders? He shouldn't be. He hasn't gone through it enough. So that's part of what this year is about, is having him go through it. And you think the team's good enough that he'll get, things go well, you get to play in the playoffs, and he gets a lot of great experience. But the other thing I'll say is it never rode on Jimmy, but even when you have a quarterback who isn't the primary driver of your team's success, there are still, and you made this point the other day, there are still plenty of moments, plenty of throws, plenty of decisions where the guy has to make a top level play. Like they're not the 1 seed in 2019 if Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't play the way he played in New Orleans, right? Where he had one of the greatest games of his life. So there were so many throws. We could go grab a Jimmy Garoppolo highlight reel, and you could make a highlight reel of any quarterback that's played a lot of games, and they'd have some great throws. So I agree with Kyle, but the fact is that Trey Lance, there's just going to be, it's part of being on a winning team. You're just going to be put in a lot of situations, and you're going to have chances to make great plays. And I think when you're on a good team, those are going to be chances to make plays in pressure situations against other good teams on big stages, on Monday nights and Sunday nights. And this is, to use a Silicon Valley word, it's a great incubator for him. He's in it.
This is the onboarding process.
This is onboarding. Yeah, that's right.
I just typed in the box score of that game, 48-46. The Niners went to 11-2. The Saints went to 10-3. Like that was and
the Niners were coming off that loss in Baltimore.
Drew Brees that game went 29-40, 355 touchdowns. Jimmy didn't match him, but 26-35, 349, 4 touchdowns and a pick. It's the best game of his life.
349.
It's the best game of his career.
Yeah.
And it looked the best game of his career. It clearly was the best game of his career. But then just a couple weeks later, with the division on the line, I'm pretty sure he went 18-22, and he was excellent against Seattle as well. And what did the Saints and Seattle have in common? Both were playoff teams, both were on the road, and you felt the tension in both the games. And somehow the Niners team, Seattle was probably more of a team effort. Jimmy threw 4 touchdowns. Like I see what Kyle's saying about Jimmy, and he's been open about this, right? There was a lot of unknown when Jimmy in 2019, right? He never was a starter in in New England, but did get 2 starts. He did get 5 starts for the 49ers at the end of 17. Now, the difference is the Niners were terrible. So by the time they're playing those last 5 games, their record speaks for itself. The teams aren't taking them seriously. Remember the Jags, who Jimmy outplayed and they beat them. I mean, they were a 2 or 3 win team at the time. So Jimmy got to play a little under the radar, and then the next year he tears ACL by the 3rd game. But if you remember that year, it was like that first game of the season. Who'd they play?
You talking about 19?
No, in 18. I remember they played the Lions, barely beat them.
Was it what year was the Minnesota game where he had the pick 6 called back by defensive penalty?
I think that was the Lions game.
Oh, that was the Lions game?
Yeah. I think they might have played Minnesota that year, week 1, and they lost. They were 1-1 going to the Chiefs game. And if you remember, the Chiefs were up like 30-0 at halftime. And Jimmy came out and got hurt. Like it might have been just, who knows? Like Jimmy was this work in progress, but he was much more experienced of just being around the league, knowing things. Like Trey is still pretty green, both sides, right? I mean, Jimmy got to sit for years. He got to play a little in New England. Then he got to play for the Niners with no expectations. His onboarding process was fucking long up until 19. Like Trey's, I was thinking about this driving home. Think how fast Trey's life went 0 to 60. He went from being the backup, redshirt at the time, coming from Minnesota at North Dakota State. They win the national championship. Whoever the dude was that is in his name kind of is like that, who was at North Dakota State, gets drafted in the 5th round. He becomes a starter, wins a national championship, has a great year as a redshirt freshman. Easton Stick, yeah. Then all of a sudden, 1 year in as a redshirt freshman, he basically just goes to the NFL because the year gets canceled. He gets drafted 3rd overall. But he went from a tiny program, barely played, to now 2 years later, he's sitting at the podium and like one of the best teams in the league is depending on him to be the quarterback. That's a pretty quick transition. Like, say what you want about Mac Jones. He didn't play much in college, but he had several years at Alabama as the backup with Jalen, with Tua, playing for Nick, then got to play for Nick in, obviously, if you play for North Dakota State, those games, Marty Morningwig once told me this, like, just because you play in the NFL, like if you went to Montana and Montana's playing North Dakota State or Montana State or UC Davis, in that community, it's a really, really big deal. So the pressure you feel as an assistant coach or as a player is the same pressure you would feel if you're the Dallas Cowboys playing the Eagles internally. Like there's no, like, I don't want to ruin this game for my team, but there is just a difference. More people are talking about you externally. It's just way bigger. I think we underestimate just how big, and it's honestly a testament to like how impressive and mature he is at his age to go from that. Because one thing Pop said when Jimmy Ward got injured and he wasn't able to be on the stage in Hufanga, he's like, you think Hufanga's 40 years old. He's an old soul. But the one thing Hufanga is like played at SC. I mean, he comes from the, Hufanga's been in the big leagues. You say SC was down. He's still fucking the best player at USC. Every time he walks in that building, national championships and Heisman trophies, just a little bit different. And just the way they're talked about in one of the biggest cities in America. Like, even when they're shitty, like it's a big story down there. Like, what the hell is going on with USC football? And this guy coming from a big program in North Dakota, and they're obviously really successful, but being the starting quarterback of the Niners within like 18 months, I respect just getting thrown into the fire, and we'll see if he can handle it. And he just becomes a stud, which everyone's rooting for him to become. And I think Kyle, as those quotes, clearly believes in him. But it is just, I think sometimes we just overlook how insane this transition is for this player. Like even Mac, like, how Mac went to kind of replace Brady. Well, yeah, he replaced Tua and played for Nick Saban. Like, if you were going to have a spot in college, like that's probably the best spot to get you ready, right? Where you're basically playing in the pros, So this is. And
but you also go into battle. Who you go into battle with, quote unquote, also matters, right?
Well, I think ultimately
he rides in with a pretty good team,
100%. And this is where in 2000, just modern day NFL, you don't get to see this as much. I think it's going to benefit him if he turns out to be a good player. That last year was well needed. That he kind of got the onboarding year, the redshirt year, but he got to dabble a little bit. It kind of played out perfectly. Like, do you think looking back, it's impossible to know? And he was injured with his finger, but let's just say he was healthy. I wonder if given their situation at corner, do they win 10 games with him? Because it could have been a disaster early on, you know? I mean, we're at practice today, and you see they're still working through like everyone on the same page. Sometimes plays.
Maybe they do, but I certainly don't think they win 11. You know, like I don't think they would have been better. They certainly could have been worse.
But if the football god came down, he's like, actually, I know what it looks like. They would have won 8. You'd be like, yeah, I could see that, right?
You might have taken it, but they wouldn't have made the playoffs.
No.
So you wouldn't have. That's the other thing that's different between last year and 2019, right? The standard is not be the 2019 team. Not this year. The 2019 team was the best team in the league. They went 13-3. They were the 1 seed in the NFC. They
also got to fly under the radar a lot coming into the season. Most people weren't picking them to be, a 12-13 win team.
That's true, but immediately they were very clear. They started 8-0 or 9-0, whatever. I'm just saying, like, the standard for him is not, when we go back to that Saints game. Well, if Trey Lance plays that Saints game and they lose and he doesn't throw the way Jimmy, they're not the 1 seed, but they're still a playoff team. This year, they just got to be a playoff team. They don't have to be the 1 seed. So I think that's important. Like, he doesn't have to have that game necessarily if they're winning a bunch of other games and they're not the 1 seed. That's they just got to be a playoff team this year. And that doesn't, they don't have to win 13 games.
I think what makes Kyle very unique, and he used to take a lot of shit for this, even, around the Jimmy, like, does he think he can win with anybody at quarterback? And you kind of see that quote, like, yeah, I kind of do.
And for a reason.
Why? Because I have. So, yeah, I mean, I think he would tell you, I believe that also because we have a really good team. I don't think he would, if you gave him like, just, I don't know who's a shitty team in the league, right? You gave him the Bears. He wouldn't go like, yeah, I can win with anybody. He wouldn't say, you need good players at other positions. But I think in his mind, if my team's good and my quarterback does what I ask him to do, we can be solid. I don't necessarily need Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. Now, I also think, like, would you take Patrick Mahomes right now? He would say, of course I would, right?
Right.
Or Josh Allen. Or he might go, yeah, I'd be good with Cousins and we save a little money and get another player. Who knows? Maybe he's got a little more money ball into you than he thinks.
I'd be bold.
Irony is Cousins still cost you $40 million, right? It's not like you get 1 for 20. This isn't baseball where you're like, well, I can get this player and get 3 other guys. No, I mean, the random quarterbacks now cost you 38. So I mean, it's just the going rate. I mean, I think Derek is like 40. I mean, that's just the rate of these guys. Most of the guys in the top 10, Brady, the reason no one can even get mad at Brady for taking a vacation. Remember, guys, I make $27 million. Leave me alone.
That's why there should be so much pressure on the Chargers and the Bills this year. But, well, not the Bills, the Chargers, right? Because Herbert's still cheap.